Hey folks, we're back from the break, and Chuck is on the phone. Chuck.
Hey Doc, they played a Valley Electric commercial on the break.
Yeah, I saw that. And you know what? I told Creig, I said, you know what? Creig and I pay for this show, so they could take their advertising elsewhere.
Let me add my 2 cents to that. It's either the board of directors and the guys at the top are going to get filthy rich, and/or they got a major cash flow problem, and probably both.
Yeah, they've been spending a lot of money. This guy's all about capital investments and capital this and capital that. So, you can't be spending all this money and not recoup your investment somehow, some way, at some point, and then try and make it look good while you continue to spend money, meaning it gives you the excuse to continue to have these capital investment projects if you can recoup some money on that. Just about when they're ready to stab you in the back, you say, wait a minute, here's your money, and you say, oh, okay, and then you kick the can down the road for another 10 years. So
Absolutely.
no.
And Ray, I got a Thames unit. I'll give it to you. I'll cost you guys a sale.
There you go, Chuck.
Well,
my question for you guys is this: Do you believe in this thing called chemtrails and HARP?
I've heard about chemtrails, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, chemtrails are supposedly chemicals that are streaking the sky all over the world and have been for almost 2 decades now. And I was just wondering if you ever saw any evidence of that in sinus problems, etc.
I've seen it, I've heard about it. I haven't done any in-depth stuff, but I know it's out there. It's just one of those theories that how the planes will fly, and they put something in the gas or whatever it is, and it's some type of either aluminum or something or whatever. The weather changes, and they say, well, some places, you watch them and then they're out there and all of a sudden they just grow and grow and grow and they grow into these huge cloud covers. And that's the argument that it's not just, steam or, fuel burning off the engine. Mm-hmm. There's something else more to it than out there. And we would never know because it's just a fuel additive and nobody ever checks the fuel that goes into the jet planes. And although I do remember something from back, when they show B-52s and things of that nature in the military, back when the first jets, they were leaving contrails. But, Chuck, it's just one of those things. How are you who's gonna go up there and scoop that up and find out what's in those chemtrails? And maybe somebody's done that. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of tapes. It's a lot of aluminum and barium and all kinds of things that affect your brain and your neurological system, supposedly. And I believe it, of course. I'm a conspiracy nut.
Well, yeah, and that's the problem with going down the rabbit hole. You just don't know how far to go down, and you don't know when is enough. And I think that it's very hard to determine. I think the best way to do it is somebody to get a plane and fly behind a chemtrail and do it. But how do we know that's just not part of the fuel? I mean, how do we know that that's just not something that they can't filter out of the Jet A kerosene?
Well, there's solutes that come out of your automobile exhaust. The black smoke that comes out of a diesel is an unburned fuel. It's fuel that hasn't burned. So there's definitely something being left behind. And I mean, stranger things have happened than for our government to put chemicals into the fuel in the hopes of dealing with the weather, the drought and stuff.
Well, I mean, are there contrails in foreign countries? Is it just because I don't think, they would make their fuel over there too. Did you know the answer to that, Chuck?
Yeah, there's chemtrails all over the world. I'm a golfer, so I watch tournaments all over the world, and whenever they do a sky shot, you can see them. In Pahrump, they've decreased significantly the last 3 or 4 months. But I had a TV show back in 2008, and I used to report on them all the time. and they do these, patterns across the sky, and then it would spread out into this never-ending, what they call high clouds on TV on the weather forecast. And we're supposed to have 300 plus days of sun, and it used to be like that. There was never any clouds, and then for years and years, it was almost a daily event. So I was just wondering if you'd ever seen any evidence, medically about it.
Yeah, I haven't really followed it, but I've heard about it, and that's one of those things that's really hard to explain and to know what the answer is. But I know there's a lot of people that follow it, and a lot of people believe it. But just like the vaccine issue, the people, the autism and the vaccines, and
right.
People get behind that, and I often wonder. I've been seeing vaccines for years, and how does that relate to autism? It's a hard sale. I don't know what the scientific link is between the two. I think autism is a function of, it's always a percentage. It's just something that's been there, but as the population grows, like everything else, you just start to see larger numbers of a disease because the population is growing. If it's 1% of the population, 1% of 3 billion is 3 million. 1% of 7 billion is 7 million, 700 million, whatever the number is. But that number grows, and so it becomes. But we have to find a way to explain it, and nobody can.
Right.
And so it's one of those things that I like conspiracy theories that there's some logic behind it and you can prove it. Nobody's done any double. I mean, in countries where they don't get immunizations, right? Mm-hmm. What's the how much autism exists?
Right.
As opposed to the population where there is. What's your control group?
And that's the thing. There's so little empirical studies that have been done over those kind of issues.
And it might be. I mean, it might be that let's take the example that vaccines do cause autism. Okay, let's look at it the other side. In medicine, there's always a risk-benefit ratio. Okay.
Right.
So, what is the risk in population for moms not taking a measles vaccine and delivering babies when they get measles, and all the deformities and all the things that happen with that? We do more harm to ourselves at letting mothers drink and smoke and do drugs than we worry about autism. I mean, let's get right down to it. The same thing that I talk about with, this little media circus of, all lives, or not all lives, Black Lives Matter. I mean, if they really mattered, which they do, then what about all the people that kill themselves all the time and shoot themselves up? I mean, that's the part I don't understand. I understand it all, but if vaccines are doing that, let's take the risk-benefit ratio.
Right. I'll get off the line so someone else can call.
Yeah, I know. We can talk about that all day.
Thanks.
And I think, when we look at, let's talk about cholesterol for a change. I mean, they've got this new product out that's a monoclonal antibody, which is actually an injection. Mm-hmm. It's brand new on the market. And, of course, getting it covered by insurance is impossible. But this drug works extremely well because what happens is that if you're one of these people that have a heterozygous LDL receptor issue, then what that means is that when your liver cell puts out an LDL receptor to grab that cholesterol particle and bringing it down into the liver cell, there's a product or an enzyme that actually registers that LDL receptor inactive. So what they did was they developed a monoclonal antibody to this particle that renders that LDL receptor inactive. So it's a blocker, right? Mm-hmm. If I reach up and grab a pass and I pull it in and I get knocked down, I can't get up right away and catch another pass. But what it is it's a blocker that runs right alongside of that receptor, and it grabs and it makes sure that the LDL receptor can keep grabbing. And I saw a patient who had been on it, and they couldn't tolerate the statins at all, and their cholesterol was incredibly improved. I mean, their LDL was 160, 170, and after being on this, it was 67.
Wow.
I mean, it was, and no statin problems at all. No muscle aches, doesn't even work on the liver in that respect. It works directly on the LDL receptor. So this is one of those true, it's like an immunization. It's like a 2-week immunization. You give yourself that monoclonal antibody every 2 weeks, okay, to enhance your LDL receptors, and it's remarkable what it does for people's cholesterol. Great product. I mean, the expense on it is probably just freaking astronomical because of what drug companies do today. But does it work? Absolutely, it works. And we know that if I can treat 1 out of 4, if I treat 4 people with cholesterol-lowering agents and I get them to goal, I save a life. I save somebody's life by treating 4 people. So that's the number to treat. And there are a lot of people out there in my practice which can't tolerate that. But when you can't tolerate statins, but when you give them this product, it does work. But today, I mean, money's tight, times are hard, and here's your blanket Christmas card. I think it's it's hard for people to afford the co-pays on this stuff, and we're still limited by what Medicare and the governments will approve. But it's truly a remarkable product. So, where is that give and take? The measles and the diphtheria. Look at all these other vaccines that are out there, and the flu vaccine and the shingles vaccine and the Gardnerella for HPV. I think they're good. I mean, that's my personal opinion. There are a lot of people that hate them, and I wouldn't be able to change your mind. But I'm one of these people, if you come to me and say, I don't believe in vaccines, so be it. That's fine. We're going to go to break and come back in a minute. Thank you for tuning in.